I'd like to call our Finance and Audit meeting for Thursday, May 4th, May the 4th be with you, to order at 8:33 a.m. We have all members present. We have minutes for approval. I'll entertain a motion to approve the April 6th and April 10th minutes. Kelly moves. Brian seconds. Any questions or concerns? No? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. What? I did. I said everything, all members are present. Public comment?
No public comments.
Is there anyone that wants to publicly comment? Or privately comment? Okay. No. Member comments? Anyone? I have one comment, and I just want to throw this out to the committee. And I'm open to whatever ideas committee members have. So we have a routine consent agenda, and obviously sometimes things get pulled, but I guess my ideal situation would be that somehow people would know, we would know in advance what would be pulled so that the staff wouldn't have to come if their stuff isn't being pulled. So I'm just thinking, like, you know, there's no sense in them coming all the way up here. 5 minutes into the meeting, we tell them you can go do whatever because we're not going to talk to you. And now they just wasted X amount of time, especially like transportation that comes all the way out from transportation to here. So I'm just trying to think of a way that we can be more respectful of staff's time.
I like to see their faces.
I was going to say, I love the fact that they're here.
They're all smiley and bright.
I mean, I can say that I try to give people warning when I'm going to pull their stuff. So
I don't need an answer right now.
right.
It was just my thought.
yeah,
It was
I do
just,
think it's reasonable to send an email out to who you think is the person who's going to respond. Well, the department chair, whoever the department chair is.
correct.
Say, hey, I have questions about this.
We can always let you know by the
Yeah.
morning or the evening the night before.
I'm open to whatever ideas. I'm just trying to be respectful
Yeah, no,
of
it's
people's
a lot of
time.
people.
So that was just, you know.
It's a nice idea, but
Yeah.
unless we get the agenda sooner, it's pretty tough. I mean, if we get it one day, I gotta look at it the next. If I'm not available, I still work.
Well, we get it on what, Monday typically?
3 days.
3 days?
Tuesday, lots of time.
Tuesday, Wednesday. I don't know.
Is
You've
it
been pushing around on Mondays.
For sure on Monday, yes.
Okay.
The time on Mondays, that's not a issue, but.
Yeah, no, I know.
Monday I have my own agenda.
Well, no, because we were dealing with Tuesday, right? Everyone has something, so we can, yeah.
If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I just was,
That's good
you know,
thought.
I
I think it's a
was
nice
trying to help.
idea. Let's give it some thought.
Trying to think about it.
I have one thing to say. Today
yeah.
is Dollar Scoops at Culver's to raise money for FFA.
Very nice,
At all
I
Culvers?
think so.
very nice.
Well, I'll make sure I endeavor in a $1 scoop or 2 scoops or 3 scoops.
Just for the
The
benefit.
flavor
Just
of
for
the
the
day of
benefit.
brown cow associated with FFA.
Oh.
isn't it?
Oh, wow.
I was wondering about brown cow.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else? All right, we're on the new business. Item 5.1 was not in our packet. We have it sitting in front of us. I assume it just, I mean, it never went through transportation either, so,
It did not.
okay.
We weren't ready for it.
Do you need it to go through transportation? Do you want it?
No.
No what?
It doesn't need to go through transportation, that's why it's here.
Is the chair okay with that?
I believe so.
Did you ask the chair?
I did not, no.
Did any of your staff ask the
No,
chair?
I'm looking over now. No, we did not.
Okay.
A lot of this money comes back after insurance.
I understand, but I'm trying to be respectful of the process. So typically you would have asked the chair if he was okay, if that was to happen. I assume you'll do that.
Doing it right now.
I mean, this is a basic housekeeping.
It is.
Thing, isn't it?
Yes.
So,
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve item 5.1.
so
Brian? Okay.
I'm speed reading it. So is it just
Hold on a
guardrails?
second, 30 seconds.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Spend time reading it. I don't have a problem with that. if you have questions.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
How did we get into spending an extra $100,000, which is like 30% more? No more than that.
Come on down, do you have a question or
We
something?
went from 150 to 250, and did we get a lot of guardrails hurt this year, or?
That's exactly what happened. Normally, we budget somewhere around $100,000 every year, and we have money left on the table. This year, we've expended all of that within 5 months, and have one hit that we don't have revenue in this appropriation to address.
Okay, and it's like car accidents, it's not
Correct.
something,
Correct.
it's just an unusual amount of accidents hitting guardrails.
It's all the cows being loose for
I was gonna
culverts.
say deer.
Well, then the guardrails are doing their job, I guess.
They are doing their job. This is kind of an anomaly year.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, so it sounds like insurance money comes back from.
Insurance money does come back when there's insurance and when the state's attorney collects it. When that comes back, as always, the if is it within this fiscal year, is it next fiscal year? We're looking at this resolution here, it's more contractual. We have a contract with them for this year for $101,000. If we go beyond that, we don't have the revenue to continue to repay.
So we see, it's the 150,000's coming out of the motor fuel tax.
County option, yes, ma'am.
Yes, where is the extra money coming? What account will that other money come from? The extra 100,000?
That was previously appropriated and came out of county option.
I'm sorry, came out of where?
County option taxes.
Okay, so we're just doing another 150. Got it. Okay.
Are there any other questions? No? Okay, we'll go to vote then. Terry?
Aye.
Brian?
Yes.
Teresa?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Okay, motion carries. We're on to routine consent agenda, items that members would like hold. Yes, Terry?
7.9, 7.11, 7.13.
9, 11, and 13. Okay. Others? Yes, Kelly?
7.5.
Wait, I'm sorry, I meant 8, not 9, 8.
Okay, that's fine. No
None.
big deal.
Thanks.
Okay, I'm sorry, what did you say, Kelly?
7.5 and 7.15, please.
5 and 15. Others?
I would like to pull 7.4.
4. Others? Once, twice? Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to approve items 7.1, 7.2, 7.3, 7.6, 7.7, 7.9, 7.10, 7.12, and 7.14. Teresa makes that motion. Kelly seconds that motion. We'll go to vote. Brian?
Yes.
Teresa?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Motion carries. Okay, so all those are done. Let me just cross them out here. All right, so we are on to item 7.4. I'll entertain a motion. Larry makes the motion. Teresa seconds the motion. Larry, you pulled this one.
Yeah, I guess just, I know that the DevNet project is done, right? And we're going to Brightly, and what brought Brightly into the picture, and why is that gonna work? Did we have-
So, sure, so when we recognized.
Can you guys introduce yourselves?
Oh, sorry.
For listening and audio audience?
Sure, Adam Wall, Planning Development Director.
Jesse, IT Project Manager.
Tom Sullivan, IT.
Thank you.
So when we recognized the status of the DevNet project, three of us got together, and what we did is we looked around at various, at the surrounding counties and municipalities in our in our area to see what they're using. And Brightly, SmartGov's application, or I'm sorry, SmartGov, Brightly's application was in use at Wood County.
Okay. Then you just felt that was the way to go? They had good results with it?
So we looked at 3, right? We
Yeah.
looked at Brightly, we looked at Excella, and we looked at BSNA. And those were the pieces of software that the other counties were using. And Brightly seemed to capture your functionality quite a bit better than the other 2 programs. And the other 2 programs were $250,000 to get going, and then more in maintenance as well. And Brightly had better integrations with ESRI, the GIS software, and Bluebeam.
And Bluebeam.
Also payments as well.
Yeah.
GovPay, which is now AllPay. They were able to better integrate with that compared to Brightly and Excel.
Okay. Well, I mean, that all makes sense. We've just been working towards getting some kind of permitting software for a long time, it seems like. And I would just wanted to know your confidence level in this, how this was going to work, I guess.
Yeah. Higher than before, to answer that question.
Pardon?
Higher than before.
Yeah, okay, good. Good,
I
okay.
think that bar is pretty flipping low.
Unfortunately, you're right.
Yeah.
no, it's in use at Will County. It'll work here.
Oh, no, I mean the bar that was set already based on, yeah, anyways.
It's going to be a different approach too. So with DevNet, DevNet was highly customizing the software to line up or align with the P&D processes, right? So this is going to be P&D changing their processes and putting them into the Brightly SmartGov way. So it's going to be, it's still going to be a lot of work, but it's a different approach.
Was P&D okay with this, I'm assuming?
Mhm.
Was there, what was the discussion at P&D?
I don't think we had much discussion at B&D. We had a 2-hour presentation on gypsy moths.
Riveting.
So yeah, this wasn't pulled, right? This wasn't pulled at,
Pardon?
this was not pulled at P&D.
It wasn't, no.
No.
Okay, that's
That's all I got to say about that. We didn't pull it.
Okay, okay,
I
that's
just
fine.
got back in town the night before, and
Kelly?
we had a busy meeting.
Is there data migration that you guys will have to do when you move? So what's the expected time that you will have this installed and up and running? Any idea?
A year.
January.
A year? Is there a
9 to 12 months. It's going to depend on staff availability and P&D. Ideal time would be January, but I can see it going beyond that. This data migration is, not all the data from the current system is being migrated, only the open cases, the open permits.
Correct. Yeah, so over the past few years, we've been doing a lot of digitizing of records and the old records, and then as new records and new permits are closed, we're scanning those and putting those all on base. So we already have all of that data of all the closed permits somewhere else, so we're going to forego the migration for that. That'll alleviate a lot of time.
That's good, so you can go
Yeah.
back and look at things and stuff. So, do you think this will speed up the process and be more efficient when you get this installed, get things moving faster?
Yes, yeah, so this is what we've been striving for. We have cobbled together some digital processes to kind of meet demands, not only the demands through the pandemic, but recognizing some of those became normal. Those processes became normal. And so we need a digital process. We don't have one right now. So this will do everything from have an outward-facing portal that will allow people to come in and check the status of their permits at all hours of the day, as opposed to making phone calls or emails and waiting for a response or whatever. So there's a lot of advantages to this. Another big component will be keeping those records that we get right now for online applications. They're about 80% of our total permit volume. we don't have to print those. And all the time, labor, and effort that goes into that, but also that expense that goes to that applicant. Our allocated budget line is $2,000 for revenues on that. It's $23,000 in FY '22 because of all the printing that we've done for these applicants. We just don't have a process for it. And so now we'll just keep those in a digital state all the way through completion and then just migrate them into on basically conclusion of that project.
So it's actually reducing expenses after it's said and done.
It would. Yeah, we're excited. We're very excited.
Brian?
I think we're all familiar with the fact that there has been an increase in demand and there's going to continue to be an increase in demand. And frankly, I'm kind of surprised that we've been able to patchwork things together to the extent that we have been. So kudos to staff, I think, for your abilities to do that. I also think that staff has done a remarkable job of, reviewing, and if this is their recommendation for a vendor program, then by all means, I support it. And I appreciate the forward thinking.
Anything else? Okay, we'll go to vote. Teresa?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Okay, motion carries. We're on to item 7.5. I'll entertain a motion. Brian, Teresa, Kelly, you pulled this one?
Yep, I did. Good morning.
Good morning.
So I've been reviewing everything that you have here, and so right now you have 4 full-time positions.
Correct.
And you want to move to 5.
.4, it's
I'm sorry,
18
4,
hours.
yes,
Yeah, it would be 5 staff.
Okay, yeah. So just trying to get an idea of what your staff is doing, like, so you were talking about consulting, how much, and audits and everything that you guys have under your purview. How many audits do you guys do a year?
It depends on the type of audits we do. If we're doing extensive review in one department, we could do anywhere from 4 to 10, and we're trying to increase capacity by researching getting an audit software right now. But currently we're looking to add this part-time position to overall increase capacity to still meet the demands on the internal audit side. With increased ARPA review of grants, we added a few years back reviewing requisitions, and it's taken a lot of time. So we definitely need more staff to meet the reporting and consulting requests that we're getting. It takes time after meeting with departments, doing the audits, to putting it together in reports and bringing it to the committee. So we're very conscientious to bring material audits that have interest to you guys. If we don't have findings, or if we're following up on a tip that's not relevant, we don't always spend the energy putting it all in a report. But with this audit software we're looking into, we could increase capacity to bring more audits and information to you guys. And it makes sense where our staff is, the professionalism to do that. So does that help answer? And I can kind of go over a little bit of background on this.
Well, I'm trying to reconcile. So an audit software, wouldn't that save time?
Yes, but we still have the increased demand from ARPA, requests from departments, and it really does save. Doing the mental health audit saves consulting fees. Doing the treasurer transition audit and looking at further things for the treasurer's office saves on consulting fees versus bringing outside firms. And we have my chief deputy, myself, and other staff, very technical staff, to be able to provide that service to the various offices. The commissary audit, meeting with the health department a lot recently, in various capacities, such as that. It definitely will save staff time long term, but it really intending to increase capacity. We firmly believe there's great value and savings in providing recommendations on efficiencies for departments. And we're very cost conscientious in my office and trying to do as much as we can with less. But with the compliance demands, ARPA is a huge component of that, but even with CDBG, the amount of time we're spending on that. And we are going to work with Carrie and the finance department to see if we could allocate some of our staff salaries to various grants due to the amount of time it's taking. Currently, we have, we have one position open and we filled it with 2 part-time positions. I have a part-time kind of piece of that full-time position open right now. It'd be much easier to recruit someone full-time and keep the part-time position to help meet the demands on ARPA. Those packets are a lot, but also this position can also help on the internal audit side, and they're currently doing that, doing reviews on journal entries and various things that, because they have an accounting degree and have the skill set to assist, versus adding a temp right now to our office. Because we have demands, it's easier to hire someone full-time. Temps are very expensive, especially going with a firm.
Okay, so you said, so last year you converted the 1 full-time to 2 part-time. And when were they employed? Like, when were they hired, I guess?
I would have to look. We hired someone that worked at the auditor's office previously and brought them back as kind of temp, but we did it directly. I would have to look if it was what part of 2021, and then, yeah, I would have to look.
Oh, I thought it was 2022.
Or 2022,
Okay.
yeah.
The
And
only
then
reason
we hired a CPA part-time, and that was kind of to fill the remaining piece of that. We decided, since a CPA applied, that was looking for part-time work, and we could take on that technical, fill it that way, just based on the demands. But I'd have to look.
That's okay, that's all right. The only reason I'm asking is because it seems like those 2 part-timers have been here less than a year. And I would rather look to see, I mean, it takes a while, once you get in a job, to know exactly what you're doing and do it efficiently. And I would rather wait a little bit to see how the economies of scale and how they're able to perfect what they're doing before we hire somebody else. And I know it's not a big ask, that's my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, have one of them, that position open, so it'd be easier to obtain. And someone full-time, but really, I mean, we are looking at potentially adding a part-time staff to just help on strictly invoices and requisitions on top of this, maybe in the next budget cycle. We need more staff. We need to get up to at least 5 total FTE. But right now, I'm trying to delay asks as much as possible, but this is something, and we did ask in the last budget cycle, kind of late for an additional position. But kind of, we felt strongly now is the time to do it. We have tons of ARPA requests now coming in, and it's going to take time and energy away from the internal audit side. And in my capacity, I need to make sure I'm doing internal audits pretty much most of the time and helping staff, but I'm spending more and more time on ARPA packets and other things.
I understand.
Especially when a position comes open, so.
Do you have anything else, Kelly?
Yes, oh, sorry.
No? Okay, Brian?
Yeah, I frankly am impressed that this request hasn't come sooner and that we haven't moved to more full-time, frankly. And so I guess my question, and I'm not going to throw this into the washer right now, but my question is, should we not be moving to a full-time position instead of just a continued part-time position? I think there are several things that we need to think about. The first is that obviously there is increased demand on behalf of our constituencies to make sure that our finances, quote unquote, are in order. That's what people expect, and I think that that's what we expect as a board. One, two, I think the more that we can do through internal auditing, the better off we're going to be routinely. I mean, there are various levels of auditing, and this internal auditing is honestly one of the places it really starts, and so I think that's really important. The other thing too is that I agree that we do have to consider the fact that the ARPA funds are here now and that they're going to be gone, but there's going to be a trail of time that we're going to have to continue to audit and keep on top of those types of things. And the other thing is that as we look forward to more and more grants, I mean, there's always demands for grants, and we look forward to those grants as additional revenues, but grants require a lot of oversight and a lot of checking, and so I think that we need to make sure that we are well positioned. So I think that the department right now is kind of a lean, mean ship, if you will, with all due respect. But I do think that we have to be sincerely thoughtful about the personnel that we appoint into this auditing position, because I just think that it's so incredibly important to all of us. We rely upon our staff hugely to provide us not only the great professional job, but the security. They provide us with a strong sense of security, and I rely upon them heavily. So I'm supportive of this position, if not down the road, a full-time position.
Anything else, Brian?
So I was,
sorry.
sorry.
Teresa was first, sorry.
Oh, sorry, Teresa.
So I just wanted to clarify, one of the two people you hired, one of them has left, right? So So the idea would be to take the person who's currently hired as part-time, move them into that part-time position that you're looking for right now, and then hire the full-time?
Yeah, I mean, it's, I'm looking right now to
Right.
hire someone full-time.
Full-time, right. So
Yeah.
making this position keeps who we have and then gets us a full-time
Yes.
position that we need. And also,
Yes. I
how,
just was trying to keep it
Right.
less confusing. 'Cause,
right, yes.
Yes.
And how backlogged are we on the tip line? Because that's one of the issues too, right? Is that,
We have one tip that we're looking
Okay.
into, but
Oh.
we're pretty up to date.
Okay.
A lot of things we are able to refer to, like if it's something related to the health department, they assist in looking at if it's something specific. But we have one thing we're looking at, so we're not. It's something that's going to take time. So we're not backlogged at the moment on the tip line. We're backlogged on audits that we need to get done.
okay.
But, it takes time to train staff, hire on board. So trying to be conscientious about who we're hiring and, we utilizing the full-time staff we have to really get internal audits done, and even this part-time individual has an accounting degree, has experience previously in the auditor's office. We're fortunate to be able to bring her back in a part-time capacity, but it's been so helpful because she was able to hit the ground running because of her prior experience, and so we're very fortunate.
So we have this position already filled, it's just being able to
right. hire full-time for the
one, yes.
for the,
But we
yes,
should do
that's
half
why.
right now, yeah.
I mean, I would, add full-time in addition, but yeah, I'm looking to hire full-time with our regular position and keep the 0.5 or less than 0.5 on. And as much as she has capacity to work, we will utilize, but it makes sense to use trained staff that have experience working in the department and keep them on.
And she can't go she's not full-time, she's not willing to,
Due
or not
to,
able to, okay.
yeah, she could go to, actually, she just likely might be able to go to 24 hours versus 18, but that's still being confirmed. There's, and why we have a position open, I can move her to 24 to fill that need. So, but I'll bring that back if that becomes available.
Teresa, you have anything else?
No, yeah, I just wanted to clarify that this
Okay.
position's already hired, it's the.
Yeah, I wrote it up initially
Yes.
explaining all that,
Yes.
and it's extremely confusing, so.
Okay, Terry?
Would you foresee the demand because of the ARPA money going away like in 2027?
I think the demand will continue, even after the ARPA money goes away. We really should be at 5
Well, I'm
FTE
not-
total, and
Yeah, I'm
then
not talking about
CDBG grants.
the head count of the department. I was just talking about, the function, yeah, the role for this position. That's all. I was just wondering because you could always, never knowing what the future may bring. So that's one question. And then, being that this is my industry, well done. I do not know how you could get this skill set with this payroll burden. That is
Yeah.
absolutely amazing, miraculous. And I wanted to ask, you've stated that this is because of the, I know that the availability skill set versus the people looking for this
Yes.
skill set is greatly out of balance. You could put 2 zeros behind every a person available and then demands for that type of skill set. And so I wanted to just confirm that you're looking for people who can and will work. And a lot of times it has to
Yes.
accommodate where they are at their stage of life. So for example, to find full-time could be significantly different and significantly more expensive. And so the fact that you can get this done this way for now
Yeah,
is,
that's what,
it is incredible.
and even right now, we have the position posted for full-time, because that's what our office has, and we don't yet have a good fit,
Right.
either even offering part-time, full-time, or,
Mhm.
we're looking for full-time, but if we had 2 part-timers and that they were the best fit,
And
but
that can
we prefer
sometimes
full-time.
be what you have to do in this labor market.
Mhm.
I mean, it is just a very unusual situation right now, so.
Yeah, and we're getting more aggressive on finding new ways to recruit for that position. Because it's a key position, it's important to find the right fit and spend the energy that they're gonna be here long-term.
And turnover is expensive, yes.
Mhm.
So,
Anything else, Terry?
no.
Other, Carolyn?
Yeah, so we only have one person in the full-time position right now, a manager, program manager, or?
Yeah,
Okay, so no, that's okay, because for some reason, I thought we had 2 in there, and then if you
yeah, we
move-
had 2 part-time in that one position, but due to family
Right,
obligations.
so now we have 1.
Now we have just the one part-time, and I want to, instead of hiring a part-time, hire a full-time,
Yeah.
that position.
No, I understand all that, I just wanted to make sure I was still on board, that you're down to 1 in that one position. So then I guess
Yes,
my only question would be,
part-time.
you have 1 part-time, which would move over to this part-time position.
Yes.
That would be an added position.
Yes.
My only other question would be, they're both called internal audit program managers, and for such a small organization, then you've got your internal audit associate as a full-time.
Mhm.
So, you've got 2 manager positions, I guess I
Right.
just wondered if you could speak to that.
Yes, so the auditor's office is classing that position based on the skill set and the work that we're having that position do.
Okay.
For the auditor's office. We kind of, for example, the associate, as they get more experience, and education and maybe credentials, we can move them into audit senior based on where they're at, kind of similar to a CPA firm, and then move things based on the skill set of the staff in the office. I mean, we're still some time from that, but yeah, it's based on the kind of skill set, and they are at the bottom of, I mean, it could be a senior position. I mean, in the auditor's office, I mean, it probably wouldn't make much of a difference. on labeling, but they're at that pay grade, and we're very fortunate to actually have that position at that pay grade, so that skill set and stuff that we have, so.
Barry, you got any questions?
I think I heard the answer, but when I look at the organizational chart that you currently have, it doesn't line up with what I'm hearing. So you've got
There's,
yourself and 3 full-time employees right now, according to your organizational chart. But that is not what you have. Is that-
yeah,
that's
no,
correct?
that's what I have. I have, so before the resolution,
Where does the part-time person fit in right now on your organizational chart? The internal audit program manager? is
Yes.
Just part-time, not
just
just one person?
part-time.
Okay. That's what I didn't understand, because the organizational chart wasn't showing up the same as what I was hearing.
Yeah, so after the resolution, I have the part-time position. And so, yeah, myself, my chief deputy, and then looking to hire, right now, this internal audit program manager, the full-time, looking to hire that position after this resolution as full-time.
Okay.
Be,
That's going to help clear it up, and I just wasn't hearing what I was looking at. That
Yeah.
wasn't- so,
it's,
Okay, that's
it's,
no problem, thank you.
I wanted to explain it more verbally, so I appreciate that opportunity because we wrote it up kind of explaining what position's open, and it got very kind of convoluted and
That's what I was having times too.
Okay, so I have some semantic questions for you.
great.
So, what I just heard you say, I don't think your resolution reflects. And
Okay.
so, my problem is that I understand logistically what you're trying to do, but your resolution is only allowing you to hire a half-time person.
Yes.
If you hire truly a full-time person, that person's gonna have benefits, which your resolution doesn't cover and your current employees don't cover.
Yeah, can I explain that? So we currently, in our budget, have a full-time internal audit program manager position granted to us. We just, because of the staff available at the time, filled it with 2 part-time. They were the best. So really, we just need to add the internal audit program manager part-time and confirming with
Well,
payroll.
I guess I'm trying to understand, is there budget allocated for benefits for this position, even though it's not being utilized?
Yes, we
Yes,
budget by the
there are.
position, not person.
No, I understand that, but she has 2 part-time, which would mean that neither one of them are getting benefits.
We're over budgeted in benefits, and as we sit here today.
Okay.
Because she had a full-time budgeted position, but she filled with 2 part-timers.
Got it. That's fine. That doesn't, okay, so that
Yeah.
answers that
No,
question.
That's a great
Second
question.
part of it is, the way the resolution is written, you're paying for this position through ARPA grant funds.
Mhm.
So as you know, policy states that once grant goes away, funds go away, position goes away.
Mhm.
I'm hearing you say that you would like to retain this position even after ARPA grant funds go away.
Correct. I'll have to come back and at that time and discuss if there's alternative funding sources through grants
Okay.
or add it as a supplemental.
I just want to be clear that that's,
Yep.
okay, all right.
That's where I was going when I was talking about a full-time position, needed as we move forward. So,
Right, but basically as this is
I-
written, it's,
Yep, you're
in
right.
3 years, it's coming back to us, or potentially, okay.
Differently,
Okay.
full way.
Which I think would get to Terry's question about whether you need that capacity.
Yeah.
Through the
Right.
so that's a good opportunity to discuss that.
Okay. All right, anything else?
I understand it now. I didn't realize you didn't have a half-time person in there that you were trying to fill.
Yeah.
And is it easier to fill with part-time people or a full-time person?
It's so far, we haven't found the right fit. At the time, it happened, but I'm not expecting like lightning to strike twice on that. I'm expecting most candidates want a full-time position with benefits historically in the past. It just happened that the individuals presented at the time had family demands and they were looking for part-time, and they were the most qualified and with prior experience and one having a CPA and accounting degree. So we wanted to take someone that did governmental audits with a CPA if they were willing to even work part-time, and we happened to have a temp that was working for us with prior experience and an accounting degree. So it worked out. So, but I'm not expecting it to, but we don't have yet a candidate we're still going through that process, so.
Any other questions? Nope. Go to vote then. Kelly?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Teresa?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Okay, motion carries. We're on to item 7.8. I'll entertain a motion. Terry, Larry? Terry, you pulled this one?
Yes, I have a simple question. On a resolution like this, do we have any unfunded portion that we have to, where it's going to cause us to have expenditures that aren't?
This is dollar in, dollar out.
Okay, great. That's all I
Yeah, so
wanted to know.
Our
Thank you.
department is fully grant funded through
Okay.
DCEO.
Great, that's it. That's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll go to vote then. Carolyn?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Brian has stepped out. Teresa?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Motion carries.
Thank you.
We're on to item 7.11. I'll entertain a motion. Kelly and Teresa. Terry, you pulled this one?
Yes, my question here regarding it's a vaccination program. Is this including any promotion of COVID shots?
So it's all vaccinations, getting
Right, but
everybody.
COVID's not a vaccination, so that's what I was asking. Does it include COVID shots?
It would include the COVID vaccine, yes.
Okay, my concern is putting the county in a litigious situation, promoting this with all of the data that's been coming out over the last 2 years. And then we have this mandate ending in May. Is there any way that we can stipulate what the program is going to address? Because I am very concerned for our county. This is going to be one of the biggest class action things over the next decades that we've ever seen.
So is the question,
The question is, does this program promote COVID shots, which are not vaccines? This is a vaccine program.
there is a COVID vaccine, and it is included, but this is a broader vaccination promotion.
Words mean things.
Program.
It is not a vaccine, it's a COVID shot.
Would you like to address the COVID vaccine? Susan is our director of nursing.
Thank you.
I guess I don't, it is a vaccine, it's a messenger RNA vaccine. There's multiple types of productions of different types of vaccines and how they create the vaccine to produce an immune response in your body. The shot that you're describing as a shot, it does produce an immune response in your body using messenger RNA, technology. I know that there's data on both sides. There's data that it's been successful, it did reduce mortality in the elderly population. And then, of course, we are always monitoring all vaccine types response through the VAERS system, the Vaccine Adverse Reporting System. So if we identify somebody that had an adverse reaction, or we think it might be related to the vaccine, we report it in there, and it does result in an investigation on whether it is occurring. That's where a lot of that data is coming from. It doesn't mean it's founded yet, but it is being researched. But the pros definitely outweigh the cons for all vaccines, including the messenger RNA vaccine technology that COVID vaccines were produced under.
Respectfully, I hate to see us put our county at risk and the taxpayers of this county at risk. I think that there is so much data. This is so controversial right now, and it has been for several years. The pandemic is ending May 11th at a federal
That's
level
the
and
public
state
health
level.
emergency declaration ends, but the virus is still circulating.
And we have a shot that is in a very short period of time here, but much evidence is coming out. Yes, it absolutely triggers an immune response. For example, the immune system attacking vital organs. So, I mean, I'm not an expert in this area, but I certainly think that there's enough concern that we need to look at this. And I would just ask that we have some type of pullout regarding COVID on this. I mean, vaccines, absolutely. The COVID shot, danger. I just don't think that it should be something that we're delving in. So what can we do? What could we do? I mean, how much of this is actually going toward that? Because if the bulk of it is going toward promoting a COVID shot under the guise of a vaccine program. So that's all. I think that's a legitimate question.
It is to promote all vaccines. As the resolution talks about, and Susan could go in more depth, lots of vaccines, children went unvaccinated, right? So there's been a decline in all vaccinations. So it's really not just about the COVID vaccine. That is one of many vaccines that people need to be aware of. People have choices to make. So it's not about pushing the COVID vaccine. It is about, but COVID is one vaccine that, from the public health perspective, from what the CDC recommendations are, that is, something that we are going to promote as part of this. But it is by no means singularly about COVID.
Okay, so we would not see any McHenry County Department of Health ads targeting getting a COVID vaccine or shot or booster or any words that you would want to use. It would be just basically just a generalized, vaccine.
Those ads have not been developed yet, so I'm not going to say that COVID wouldn't be part of it. It may be, maybe it is going to be a general message. I don't think we have gotten that far in terms of what the specific message is going to be, but this is about promoting all vaccines that are recommended.
Well, I really have a problem giving carte blanche to propaganda that's unresearched, unfounded under this. I mean, if it was going to be something where you could say, vaccines, if you're going to be specific, then you'd be specific about all, that you'd have data. And I'm quite serious that when I look at the potential litigation, which has already started, you guys already know, I mean, this is public information, that there have already been tens of millions of dollars awarded for people who were mandated to get shots.
Well, I'm not sure how, and that's not my area, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't think from my perspective that the health department or the county is necessarily exposed. People who opt in to get the shot, it's an individual decision.
It is, but then we'd be promoting that. We'd be promoting propaganda.
I think I appreciate what you're saying. And I hear what you're saying about the concern of the logistics, because we're seeing this in the media that people are suing. But we also have to understand.
And have won.
But not in all cases. So I think there's people that also are suing because they weren't afforded the opportunity to be vaccinated right up front because of the shortage of vaccines, developed COVID, and got the long-term effects of COVID. So I think there can be arguments on both sides. I think by us offering it, people making the decision of whether they want to get it, that's what I think we need to do, because if we don't offer it, if we don't have it available for those people that do want to make the decision to get it, then we could be liable for that too, if they would develop or die from COVID because they didn't have the opportunity to get the shot. It could be, because we do know it reduces mortality in certain populations. So the reverse can be said too, in my opinion. I feel like we in public health are expected to provide the tools for people to protect themselves and the education to do that, and they make the choice.
So if you did include the shot in a propaganda program or a public campaign, you would have all the disclaimers with all of the information and links to the data of the bad consequences that could be a part of it, so that people could be informed and make an informed decision?
There's lots of information available for people to make an informed decision. So whether or not that is going to be referring them to, say, the Illinois Department of Public Health website to learn more, talk to their physician to learn more, visit our website to learn more. That
I agree with
information-
you. There is lots of access to the information. There's lots of promotion on the information. So why do we need to have this information promoted? Why do we have to be one more? I mean, you can have it, available without promoting it. I agree with what you say. There is lots of information. So that's all. That's all I have. I don't have any more questions.
Jeff?
Yeah, with respect to my colleague, I truly believe that the inherent responsibility of the health department is, as has been indicated, to provide both the tools and the education with regards to health, safety, and security within the broader constituency that it serves. And I think that's exactly what the department is trying to do in this regard. I'm going to honestly say that I take a bit of offense in the use of propaganda. I mean, I think that word is too widely thrown around, and I don't think that that's appropriate. I think that we're looking at all sources of information, all sources of information. And as you have stated, and others have stated, there is tremendous amount of information out there. In today's society, there's always, and frankly, there's always been questions in history about the ultimate impacts of these types of choices. But it all gets down to the fact that it is a choice. It is a choice. Now, in the past, we haven't always had choices. I mean, I'm sure that some of us can recall, polio vaccines and, all those types of things that we had to have early on in our lives, which were not quite so choice given. But this is a choice, and I think people understand that they have a choice. But we have, as a county department, a responsibility to provide the tools and the education so that people can make the proper choices. And by providing the tools and education does not mean that we're spreading propaganda. So I do take exception to that.
Anyone else?
I have a follow-up.
Let me have Tracy go.
I mean, I am in agreement with Dr. Sager that certainly in the 80s, when I was getting vaccinated as a child, it was not, nobody was really fighting getting their kids vaccinated. Sometime in the last 30 years, it became highly politicized and became controversial. And so before the COVID vaccine was controversial, there were other ones before. I'm not going to name them all now. But ultimately, we know when people started not vaccinating their kids that we saw the return of diseases. I think that I actually am in great disagreement with my colleague over whether or not the COVID vaccine is a danger to society. I think that the evidence actually shows that the COVID vaccine, once it came out, it slowed the spread, it reduced stats, and it reduced the long-term effects, which those have not had time to be fully studied. What happens to the people who've got COVID now as children or as 20-year-olds, and how that will impact their senior parts of their lives, right? So I think there'd be undue burden to have the health department have to put onto their advertisements links to every single vaccine and everything that could happen to them, because off the top of your heads, how many vaccines do we offer?
Well, whatever's available, we offer
Right.
all advisory committee
Right, so
recommendations.
I lost count of how many vaccines my kids have gotten, but there's a lot of them, right? I think it's undue burden. I think it clogs the poster and hides the effect of being able to advertise to the public that they can get vaccines here at the Public Health Department at no cost vaccines?
Well, it's no cost for COVID. It depends on the vaccine.
Oh, okay.
But it's
Yeah.
reduced or no cost.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's an important thing, is that we need to get the message out that the health department has the vaccines for our community.
But it's not just to be clear,
Yeah.
we're not necessarily trying to drive all people to come to the health department. It's more an awareness of these are, vaccines are important. They prevent morbidity and mortality.
Yeah.
Get up to date. Moreover, I will say that with regard to any kind of qualifier, so whatever we put out has to be approved by the Illinois Department of Public Health. So it's not as if we can just say, we're going to do this thing. It does go through them. It has to be vetted through the state. They have to sign off.
You can message based on the county. Your messaging is based on the county. They approve it, but.
Yeah, they have to approve the ultimate message.
Correct, yes. Got it. All right, anyone else have questions? Yep, no, I just wanted to give everyone else a chance first, and then I'll come back.
I just wanted to, so thank you. I appreciate you coming forward with this. I think it's important that we get the word out that we have vaccines for everybody, especially when I know people who have decided not to vaccinate their children, and then you hear of all the polio and things that have been gone and eradicated for a long time are coming back. So what you're doing is mandated by the Illinois Department of Health, right? And so it's not like you take your information from them, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. All right, so it's not, there's no opinion in what you're doing, it's you're taking your facts from the Illinois Department of Health, so.
And from the CDC,
From the
right?
CDC.
Yeah, from the public health expertise, yeah.
Right, so I just wanted to make sure, I agree with my colleagues that this is important that we have, so, thank you.
Anyone else? Carrie?
So I think we could all agree that Merriam-Webster dictionary would be a good source of a definition. And prior to November of 2021, the definition of a vaccine included the word immunity to a specific disease. Merriam-Webster changed the definition of vaccine in November of 2021 in direct response to the COVID shot, because the COVID vaccine, quote unquote, doesn't actually provide immunity from COVID. So this is, I guess words mean things, but I guess you can just change a long-term definition of a word and have it be okay. And regarding people who were restricted in travel and restricted in employment and restricted to access because they did not get this shot, I would say that there certainly has been a limit on choices. So I think it's important that we have this conversation. It's a healthy conversation to have. And regarding whether the CDC or the Illinois Department of Health mandates this, I think one of the beautiful things about McHenry County is that we stand up and speak truth into darkness when we know things are wrong. And we don't always go with what a governor or a state legislator say, because we know what the right thing is and we do it. So with consideration to that, I just want to make sure that I'm on public record with this conversation, and I thank you all for engaging in it, and I really thank you for the work that you do. It's not easy, I know that, so thank you.
Okay, go to vote on item 711. Larry?
Yes.
Carrie?
No.
Brian?
Yes.
Teresa?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Motion carries. We are on to item 713. I'll entertain a motion. Larry moves.
We skipped 711.
Oh, that was
That's the one we
7-11.
just did.
Oh, sorry, 713, sorry.
We're on 13. So Larry moves 13. Teresa seconds that. Terry, you pulled this one?
Yeah, I just had a question on this one. Is this going to increase the head count in the Department of Health? Or is it,
It is an increase of FTE, and it will be completely funded by the grants. And for the next 2 years, we got a significant increase in our grant movement forward. So we're adding this position to manage those grants, and then we'll reevaluate in 2 years whether that position is needed any longer.
well, you don't get the choice to evaluate it, it disappears if the grant disappears.
Right, but if we get more funding to
Correct.
continue it.
Yes.
But right now, at 2 years,
Yeah.
it would probably fall off our roster unless the funding continued.
Okay,
Right.
so,
Yes.
so this is a dollar in, dollar out type of situation
ma'am.
with the reference. Thank you. Thank you.
It's also a lot of service, right?
Yes, we've
It's
increased.
not just a person.
Yes, we've had a tremendous increase in our deliverables, and that's why the grant increased. So, yeah, we need this position to manage those deliverables that we're being asked to do.
And just to further clarify, there's no unfunded portion of this that's going to cause us to have to do expenditures to supplement what services we're providing.
No, all the services within those two, the Illinois Wise Women and the breast and cervical
Yes.
cancer program is completely funded by those dollars.
Excellent. Thank you.
Anything else? Larry?
Don't men get breast cancer?
They do,
They
and
do?
we have had some mentors in our program.
Okay, but it's
It's
not,
very
writ-
rare, but we have had that.
it's not written that way at all in this resolution. It says women.
Yeah, We
Is there a
use
better
the
way of wording it?
vernacular of the grant, but when we do get a man, we have to get permission from the state to use those dollars, because those dollars are from the CDC, and it's for women, but we do get special permission to deliver services to men if they present themselves.
Okay.
Okay. We'll go to vote then on 713. Terry?
Aye.
Brian?
Yes.
Teresa?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Motion carries. We're on to item 715. I'll entertain a motion. Teresa motions, Larry seconds. Kelly, you pulled this one.
Yep. That's I had a question for Joe. On 715?
Come on down, Joe.
You were your whole team.
No, that's okay.
Joe doesn't want to come up.
It's not a hard question.
We love just the idea today.
So on here, it says the costs, the right-of-way and the associated costs are estimated to be $35,000. But then we are appropriating $50,000 for this.
Correct.
Why do we have a 43% cushion on this?
So what happens when it comes to right-of-way negotiations, there's an appraisal that's evaluated, and then there's a negotiated amount that can come depending on each particular property owner. These resolutions allow us to have the money up front so that we can negotiate and close in a rather timely manner versus coming back with an additional resolution for every parcel thereafter, depending on how negotiation. When it comes to closings, there's a month to 2 month process to get on through TC and all these. This shortens that so we can close quickly.
Do you anticipate it'll be closer to the 35,000?
Yes, but every property owner in every situation is a bit different.
And then just to, so if it doesn't, in reading this, if they disagree, if they don't want to sell, then we take it by eminent domain, correct?
Correct.
And then what would we pay them in that case?
That becomes either a settled amount or a judge determined amount or through trial, which these parcels would be probably unlikely to go through trial.
Have you talked to the owners, do you think it's?
We've reached out through different levels of communication. Some we've had responses back, some no responses. After the approval of the appraisals here soon by IDOT, the negotiator will make contact and see which property owner feels about the acquisitions and the offers.
It's a set process.
Yeah.
You don't have a lot of leeway in it.
Right.
That is correct.
I was just trying to get more information about the process. See, it was easy.
Any other questions? He handled it much better than Joe would. All right, we'll go to vote then. Well, I have to give him kudos for coming up, because,
Right?
yeah. All right, Brian?
Yes.
Teresa?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Motion carries. All right, we, Advanced McHenry County, item 8. So when do y'all think you're going to come before us with kind of an update as to where all the projects are at?
We could have that for the next meeting.
Next meeting? Okay. Is there any issues as of right now?
As of right now, no.
Okay.
We
There's
have,
still a big question on McHenry. If affordable home project.
Yes,
That's a
that one
big
is,
question.
Well, and we'll deal with that then. Okay.
Well, you asked if there's any questions.
Well,
That's one.
okay.
we do have an informational meeting next Wednesday for all of the new award grantees, so that they
The
can. set
capital
their
project
budgets.
ones?
I'm sorry,
The capital project ones?
all of them,
All of them, okay.
All the new,
all the new ones.
the water super.
So the ones that have been approved since March.
Got it.
So is the MCEDC gonna come forward with the request?
Did we give a deadline?
We did not. And I don't know where last time I talked to Jim, they were still trying to put together a program. And if he's not able to, then at some point, similar to all the rest of them, we'll be, following up and saying, okay, well, this.
I had a conversation with Jim, and I know that he's still working on it. We talked about getting together even this week to kind of talk through his idea. He was working on an RFP to potentially be a zone administrator for the McHenry County Enterprise Zone, so I think that's been a little bit of their time the last couple weeks.
Okay. Discussion number 10, 10.1, mental health board request.
Okay, Leo, a week ago today, Carrie and I went down and met with Leonetta to talk about what we're hearing or anticipating
Take a seat, Dennis.
with regard to the mental health board levy. The mental health board levy has been flat for a number of years, and I think Leo's feeling a lot of pressure there. And I know there has been discussion about trying to get some more money there, but what is the appropriate amount of money is something that we are all going to be kind of burdened with over the next several months and trying to land on that. So Leo, you a good summary to kick it off for you?
Yeah, sure. And I don't know what kind of questions you have, but as you know, under the Community Mental Health Act, that John F. Kennedy said years and years ago that, we are authorized under that act to care for the mental health, intellectual developmental disability services and substance use services in this county. And part of that is, having the levy and the 9-member board, and also, ensuring that, we have quality services and continuum of care. We also are, challenged to having a 3-year plan. One of the things that I've noticed in my year here, going through the funding process, is that the mental health board has been at a flat, funding providers at a flat level. And that's truly hurt us in many, many ways. There are more gaps today than there were 20 years ago, for example, because we haven't been able to keep up with the growth of our providers. We had, over $2.5 million in demand last year. When we analyzed it, it was the $2.5 million, 98% of that came from the providers, that we are not able to keep up with their growth. And as a result, we have waiting lists that clients are having to, some of those waiting lists are 2 to 3 months of clients getting into services. Mental health is one of the #1 priorities, not only in McHenry County, but across the county, or across the United States. We're having a mental health crisis. And, we really do need the increased funding to support our current providers, but also our plan. We're not gonna be able to fund our 3-year plan if we're just maintaining our providers as they are. So that's the dilemma that we're at, and I know it's a difficult decision for everybody, but we are looking at increasing our budget to $2.5 million.
Your levy.
The levy, yes.
Just to put it in a little bit of context, last year the mental health levy was $10.4 million, as it had been for several years. Clearly, inflation erodes that, no question. But what is likely to be proposed by the mental health board when you vote next month?
But it is the budget. It's 2.5 in our budget. Right.
Okay, that's fine, but it's the levy that we're focusing on. Because you can have other sources that fill your budget.
We are only levy funded.
Other grants or any user fees?
We are only levy funded. The mental health board is levy funded.
So currently the levy, I got confused. The current levy, and I know I should know this as a county board member, the current levy for not Valley, I know that, I said that. For mental health board,
Can be 0.15,
it can be 1.5.
and we are at 0.109, or it's not even 0.11.
So she's talking about the rate.
I'm talking about, I want to know the dollars, yeah.
10,450,000.
10,450,000.
And the rate on that, I think is 0.11.
And
It's almost
your
there.
operating budget is funded with utilization of fund balance and other grants. So the levy, what is on the tax bill last year was 10.45 million.
Okay.
What
And
is proposed for next year would be an increase of 2.5 million.
so a lot,
We would go to whatever that is.
Yeah, it's not quite 12 because last year, part of that was also using our fund balance, but yes, 10.4 was our levy.
Well, so this is the reason why I had this discussion here
I
today.
asked Mike, do we want to
Because
do this topic?
I got this and I'm like, this is gonna be an issue. So to me, I'm always trying to get out in front of not only this committee, but in front of the full board, information that is gonna be impacting talking decisions going forward. So, that's why we're here today, and that's why I wanted to have this information before you. So, we've been doing 10.4 as a levy, 10.45, sorry. And the request that is going to be coming is for an additional $2.5 million. And
it was 13 million.
just short of 13 million, yes. So,
It's compounded by the Community Health Act, all real, and the allowable rate is real. But layered over that is the tax cap, right? And we've taken the approach that mental health levy is part of our aggregate levy, with our IMRF and bridge tax and general fund and tort and all those other, our aggregate levy last year was just over 71 million. Last year, as a county board, we were allowed to grow that levy by about 4 million. The county board opted to take about 1.4 million in new tax levy. So Carrie and I are thinking ahead, I don't know where the board wants to land in new levy for next year.
What will we be allowed to take?
That's where I'm going.
You're
like 10 seconds ahead. Carrie's done the math. You want to share that?
So if we were to take new growth plus the 5% CPI that's allowed, the max, it would be $4,173,000.
About 4.2.
Yeah.
And we won't, and that's an
And that's an estimate.
It's an estimated number on new growth right now. So just putting in context, again, there's two big questions there. Is this county board going to maximize its levy? And I don't know the answer to that. And I don't think you guys, we don't need to answer that now. We need to go through the budget process and see what our needs are. But if we did maximize that levy, we'd get about 4.2 million in new monies from the property tax levy. There are a lot of other revenue sources. We're fortunate as a county operation, we're only about 40% property tax funded. There's a lot of other revenue sources, but of the new property tax levy, we'll have about 4.2 million. The mental health board proposal, as it stands today, would be to take about 2.5 of that 4.2 million. That's just the context we're trying to.
go ahead, Brian.
I just have a question with regards to the levy then. You said that the levy is right now at 0.1099 basically, right? For the mental health board. All right, so, and your allowable levy is 0.15, right? And so if you increase this for 2.5 million, where would that bring your levy?
Probably be close to 12 and a half.
So it'd be 0.125. 125.
It wouldn't even
Right, so
be-
there wouldn't be the full levy.
Oh, no, it wouldn't even be a demand.
Okay.
Really,
But-
all of our levies are below where they,
Right,
where they
Yeah.
can be.
exactly, right,
And more.
right. And
It's been the
so,
effect of the tax cap for
Yeah, that, this,
3 decades.
right. So the, again, in the aggregate though, we are still below our levy, as you just pointed out. And where do we fall within our levy then, relative to the allowable amount of 5%?
It hasn't, I don't know the answer, we can get that. It hasn't been particularly relevant in recent years
Yep.
because we're not even getting anywhere near it.
Right.
Last
right,
year it
right.
was 1.37,
1.37.
was the
Thank you.
CPI increase.
All right, thank you.
And the rate was 0.69 and the limiting rate was 0.72.
Yeah. I just want to make some general comments here, and I don't want to get back on the high horse I was in, a few meetings ago, but I do appreciate so much, and I have so much respect for the professionalism of our staff and the previous board and the current board to maintain a very strong, respectful and responsible conservative financial position. I think that that's been huge, and our county and its constituencies have benefited for that. And we also, I think, have done an incredible job in terms of providing high-quality professional services. I think that on a practical basis, we have to understand that it only goes so far to continue to maintain our tax levies at the consistent level that we have conservatively for so long. And we've already done it for a number of years, and rightfully so, because of the timing. But the point is that our expenses to continue to provide the quality services and in the demand level for additional services right now continue to go up. My personal expenses continue to go up. Family expenses continue to go up. Business expenses continue to go up. It's not that, again, I'll say, anybody's coming to us and saying, please reduce our amount of services. Nobody says that. Everybody wants increased and improved services on top of the high quality of services that we know are already expected and are part of our programming. So at some point, we're going to have to face the music. I mean, honestly, we're going to have to face the music. Now, I expect this very thoughtful board, this very thoughtful professional staff to do the best possible job that we can to do that appropriately and in a strongly balanced position. So I think that we're going to have to accept the fact that at some point we're going to have to increase our levy. I mean, that is a reality. And you can say cut expenses all you want to, but we've cut expenses and we've cut expenses and we've cut expenses. And that has been, it's taken us down to bare bones. And the other thing we can always say is, well, we need to go out and get more grants. We need to do this, we need to do that. That is a limited supply too. And everybody and their dog, frankly, is asking for grants. And that becomes incredibly competitive. So there's no guarantees associated with grants. So that is a challenge that we're going to have. The other thing I want to kind of put those things aside, we're going to have to increase our revenues. We're going to have to do that. So, and that, our primary source of revenues, whether we like it or whether we don't, is taxation. The other point is I think that we have to look at the facts, and I want to be corrected if I'm wrong in a fact with regards to mental health. But the first is, there's a fact that mental health need demand is increasing. It's not decreasing, especially in a growth county community as we have. One. Another fact is we all have increasing costs. Costs are going up. Fact. The third is that I believe, and this is where I want to be corrected, but didn't the Mental Health Board decrease its levy at one time at the request of the county board?
Yes.
And so they were good partners, and they decreased their levy in order to be able to kind of maintain our fiscal position and a balanced position and a well-managed position. That was a responsible thing to do at the time. But they can't keep doing this, and we've seen that fact, the agencies are no longer able to provide the services that they're supposed to be providing because of that reduction. And so I think that we've got to be realistic about that. So I think those are three very important facts. The other fact I'm going to turn to is, we all know this, we all know it, that there are three and only three choices when it comes to balancing budgets and finances. First, increase your revenue. Second, cut your expenses. And third, a combination of the two. That's it. There are no other things that we can do out there. And so I think that this is a legitimate request. I think we're probably going to find ourselves, after discussion, someplace in the middle of this request and what we have. But I think we're going to have to truly look at increasing this levy, and I'm supportive of that, because it's the right thing to do. It's the necessary thing to do based upon the facts that are presented before us. Thank you.
Go ahead, Tracy.
So one of the things that I come across is that when people who are willing to pay for the services out of pocket have contacted mental health professionals in the county, the answer is, we can't take you. And so, one of the answers is more, if we want to raise revenues, is a county, we have to raise, raising fees, a pay per service thing. But even at the mental health level, the issue seems to be that there aren't people to actually take clients in the county. And I'm not sure how with the 2.5 increase, how are the people going to see an increase in service?
Yeah, and that's a really good point. I mean, I also have data on wait lists. One of the issues that's happened over the last 10 years, because we've been flat funding providers, so imagine that with the increased costs, with increased needs, we've been flat funding. So capacity building is so vital. I know last month you talked about, capital investments and tractors for transportation and we need human capital. There hasn't been the capacity building that we've been able to give to our providers. They've been flat funded. We haven't been able to build that capacity up. So that's exactly what's needed, Teresa, is building that capacity so that we can service more people. We have wait lists. I have data on our Q1, our quarter one data. We have wait lists across the county because of that issue. And we really do need to build capacity besides the new services that are needed.
Right. I mean, because I've been trying to think of what are solutions.
It's capacity
to the issue, because there aren't. I know a number of people who they will pay it. They have the money. They can pay themselves to see a therapist, but a therapist won't take them. So, saying I'll give you money hasn't been enough to get help. And so that's my concern, is we give the board, and I think it'd be a kind of given the board's suds in the past, it seems like it'd be very difficult to get the board to approve a $2.5 million increase on the tax levy. Just overall, just to get 2.5. So it seems like we have to pull this from somewhere else. But how can we assure that when this happens, if it happens, that we're actually going to see an increase in service when the providers currently won't take client dollars?
Yeah, and I don't know anything about that. I probably would need more information about that specific topic, but I know that the wait lists, that I've passed out, I know that is currently an issue because the mental health board is one of the things we monitor closely. We have as we talked about, we have an audit process, we have a process where providers give us information, so we're constantly monitoring the services that we're funding. And there's a large wait list for services right now, and that needs to change. And part of it is capacity building. And we can't continue to flat fund when the costs are going up. We need more providers. Medicaid dollars, for example, in the state budget, you're going to be hearing the state budget. They're going to be trying to balance that budget. One of the largest items on that budget is Medicaid. and Medicaid dollars, which definitely need to be increased, and it's gonna be huge this year. The Medicaid budget's gonna be huge. One of the things that the Mental Health Board does is in our funding, we match the Medicaid rates. So if the Medicaid rates increase, just like they have this past year, we match those rates to our providers. That's how we pay our providers, is based off of Medicaid rates. And that's one of the reasons why there's a lot of providers coming to us currently now asking for some of our unallocated dollars because they're running out of dollars for their current grant dollars. So we're in that issue right now, is that the costs are going up for programming. So that's the other piece on top of all this, is that I hope the 2.5 even breaks us even. And that's my concern too, is we have this 3-year plan, we have gaps to fill. And, you know, it's a hard discussion to have, but it's a huge need, and we can't continue to flat fund our providers at this time.
John?
First of all, I am thankful that we are discussing mental health openly and the stigma has been going away, that we can talk about it like we do physical health, because it's such an important thing. And I know not everybody feels that way, but we have to get the word out more. So I had a town hall this week and I talked about the mental health board, and of all the different things I talked about, was it taxes, which they were interested in, they took out their pencils and they wrote down McHelp and 988. They were so interested in the resources we had. And that just shows how people need this information. And the services the mental health board provides with the trainings, the QPR, all of that is invaluable to all of our nonprofits. And we just had a nonprofit close because they didn't have the funds, and they're a counseling organization, and they didn't have the funds to keep going. So I know this is going to be a hard ask, and I think we need to figure out how we're going to do this. But the other thing we need to think of is that this also includes substance abuse. It's not just mental health, it's also substance abuse. And February, we just had a big discussion about the assault weapons ban. And we heard throughout that whole discussion, mental health, this is a mental health crisis. We need to keep that in mind when we're talking about this. We see all kinds of news articles and shows about guns and shootings, and we just need to make sure that we are funding mental health to keep our people healthy. So one question I have is, how much did you guys give out in grants last year?
We included, one of the things that the Mental Health Board, I'll answer your question. One of the things that the Mental Health Board has done is, for the last 4 or 5 years, is include some of the fund balance as part of the operating budget for the fiscal year. And last year they put in $900,000. So including that $900,000, I believe, I'm sorry, I don't have it off the top of my head, but I believe it was 9.3, I believe. Sorry, I don't have it at the top of my head.
That's okay.
And that included $900,000 of fund balance.
Do you have any idea how, what the unfunded ask was above that 9.3?
Oh, absolutely. It was like 2.7, 2.8 million. And 98% of that was from our current funded providers. So we're not, so let's say that we funded somebody at, $400,000, they may have asked $700,000, and that's what they needed. And we're not able to do that. And because we brought in new provider, anytime we bring in a new provider, like we did last year, we brought in Northern Illinois Recovery Center to help for detox of the unfunded patients. And whenever we bring a new provider in, that means we have to cut our existing providers. And we cut $250,000 from Aunt Martha's, for example, which was a difficult decision for us to make. And it wasn't due to quality, it wasn't due to poor service. It was actually, we had to look at who can sustain the cut.
You're also starting helping us
police social workers.
Yes,
Yes.
and we do provide a lot of county support. The police social work program, we invest in. We also invest greatly in the 22nd Judicial Circuit for the specialty courts. So we are supporting a lot of the county programs as well.
And then if you look at this sheet,
Can't see anything.
looks like in 2010, the high that you were funded was 12,550,000. So we've cut 200,000, no, sorry, 2 million.
And yeah, at one point, the mental health board, if you look at the levy, the mental health board made up close to 17% of the overall levy. We are now not quite 15%. So we have 2% less of the overall levy than we used to have. And when I even look at I look back to 2016, for example, we funded 100 programs in 2016. Today, we're only funding 80. So we're funding less programs today than we did a few years back. So we're really going backwards, and I'm just afraid. I see the need. You know, I was in this county from 1995 to 2011 and ran crisis services at that time. And I just see the need and I see the gaps, and I really truly see that there's more gaps today. The mental health board is wonderful. We have a great network of providers, but because of the lack of funding, we're not able to support the needs that we need to have in this community.
Just one last question. How many nonprofits do you guys fund?
Currently, we are at 36, I believe, at this point.
Thank you. This is going to be a very hard discussion. I know hopefully it's not going to get too dicey, but I think it's something we need to really consider.
I was working on something else there with some of these numbers. Do we give what would be our projection for the 2023, 2024 total EAV? I mean, we're anticipating that would go up quite a bit.
So the most recent estimate from the assessor's office was 10% increase.
That would,
In the county total EAB?
Yeah.
that would reflect my tax bill. 10%.
Yeah.
And how does that play into this?
Well, if you're basing it just off of the rate,
Mm-hmm.
then that would give them more money.
It'd give them 10% more.
We're still capped. We're still capped at 5% plus new growth, regardless of what the EAP is.
Okay.
So last year we levied 71.7. We're going to get 5% more than that plus new growth, which we estimated about 4.2 million.
So I think
But
is the math you're
if the
trying-
EAB goes up,
Yeah.
if it goes up more than the ask, the rate should go down.
Okay.
So last year's was 9,489,692. That was the question.
Last year was what?
Last year's,
The levy for
The
mental
levy.
health board.
that was the amount that we gave out to providers,
Okay.
was client service amount, so was 9,489,692.
9
So that was the client service amount that we gave out. That wasn't the
Was
levy.
it?
Yeah, that was
It was
what we
like-
gave out.
Was
Right.
the
Grants.
levy at 10.4, last year operating expenses
Correct,
plus any grants and utilization of fund balance.
correct.
Carolyn, did you have a question?
Just a minute.
Okay. Terry?
So I know that the board sees its role larger than the HB 708 CMHA Act on Mental Health, and that there was a referendum passed in 1967 that the county residents wanted to provide community mental health facilities and services. I'm wondering that of the budget, and just for context, because this is how we can have, I think, a good conversation. Of the 10 million of the budget, of what's needed, how much of it is currently to address HB 708 versus what we see as whatever defined in 1967 as community mental health. Just what the difference is, what the excess is. And then also, I apologize for not being familiar with the size of the staff and what it takes for the bureaucratic overhead of the program to then disseminate funds to the 36 agencies that we're funding now. And, sorry for all the embedded questions, you said that there were 80 programs, so I just wanted to clarify that those 80 programs are provided through the 36 agencies?
Yes.
Okay, all righty. So that's just basically my question is what of the amount is bureaucratic overhead? What of the amount makes us compliant with the legislation? And then what is elective? And then does anybody monitor how that is meeting, what people thought of in 1967 when they passed that referendum and what may be being provided today? There could be a difference, and I think it's a great time because that would also help to sell the concept. I mean, if you're saying, we as a county board are cutting taxes, we're not going to let taxes go up, and then now we do, then we just want to build that case so that we're actually doing the will of the people, as a governing body.
That's a great.
So I know you don't have the answers right now. I'm just saying that just for
Absolutely.
future conversation.
Absolutely, and that's great feedback. And just overall, our overhead is pretty low. I mean, I think we're about at 11% of overhead of administrative costs. We have a small staff so we're small.
Okay, but
It's important to note, we saw
11%
the
would be
levy on
really-
there in 12, was it, or 10, was it?
this is-
12 million.
500.
Right. The mental health board has done a transformation in the last decade in terms of staffing and overhead costs. It's been remarkable. But I think there was over 40 staff members at the mental health board in that building in 2010, 11.
So this is just research
And we have
that we could gather to look at it, so objective.
No, thank you.
And whatever.
And the Community Mental Health Act back then, John F. Kennedy, he instituted that because there was a lot of institutionalization. And it was really to bring community services, dollars to the community. And that's the intent of the Community Mental Health Act, is really bringing those dollars to the community and not having people in institutions as they were back then.
As a committee, we're going to continue to hear budgetary requests, and this is a unique situation, which is why I kind of brought it to us now versus through the whole budget process. But I think one of the things that I would ask the committee members to think about is how are we as a committee, and then ultimately as a full board, going to rectify the requests that are being made not only by mental health but by all the other entities. And as past board members know, we've had issues when it comes time to the actual votes on our budget in November that have become quite frustrating. So I always try and better the thought process to get us not in that position. And I would like the committee to just try and think about how we're going to go about doing this. So if we just take this particular situation as a microcosm of what we're really going to be looking at, is the process going to be where we take a vote on a increase of whatever that is and let that vote fall where it falls, and then ultimately does that get rolled into the budget? Or do we do a different process where we look at the totality of the budget, which includes all of these items, and see where that vote falls. I don't have an answer. I'm just throwing it out there as food for thought about the logistics of how we're going to go about doing this, because obviously I think there's strong feelings on behalf of board members in any particular area, and I just don't want to have a meeting where it's just amendment after an amendment after amendment after amendment after, you know what I mean, and we just get bogged down in logistics of trying to get something passed. And so it's only May, so we have in essence 6 months to try and figure this out, but 6 months will be here and gone, and we're all going to be sitting here going, well, this is going to be a fun time. And I don't want that to happen. And if that means we need to take votes earlier rather than later, meaning that we start setting things up and take votes in August or September or October that set budgetary stuff, then I'm fine with whatever process we use, but I just don't want to be sitting there at a November meeting and having amendments thrown at us on the table and saying, well, this is what we want to amend things to.
I want to thank you for that approach, because I think that that is very, very legitimate and most appropriate. And I think that the reality is that we all have priority needs that we know exist within the county, and we all have our quote-unquote kind of pet areas of concern, if you will. And so I think that it's important that we start to discuss those early on rather than waiting till the last minute. Plus the fact that I also think that gives staff some guidance in terms of what our hopes are or our expectations are, and then they can help us to sort these things out if we say, okay, this is going to be an ultimate priority for us, this is going to be an equal priority, and then they start to massage things and put it in together to the big aggregate, and then we can start to look at it and say, okay, that's our reality. So now what do we have to do about that? So I think that's a great approach, is to take these things and discuss them. As has already been stated, it's not going to be an easy process, not going to be easy request, but at the same time, I think we have to start working on it sooner rather than later. And if I can get on my horse one more time, real quickly.
What kind of horse is that?
It's actually, it's a pretty big one.
It's a high horse.
It's a quarter horse.
I'm going to bring you all a picture of the horse. I mean, it's unbelievable. Anyway, as colleague Besh said, I do appreciate her bringing forward some information questions about audience, because I think audience is an important element here. I dislike when people start, denigrating the state of Illinois as being such a bad place to live and a bad place to do business and all that. And I get really, really tired of that type of rhetoric. I think it's a great state. We have so many advantages and so many assets. Now, having said that, I think that one of our biggest scars historically here has been the state's abrogation of their responsibility for mental health. I think that was a travesty. And I think that they place that responsibility then on local communities and upon local mental health boards. That was a huge mistake. Nonetheless, here we are. And the increases in demand are only going to continue to grow. And the biggest audience that I am most concerned about, frankly, is our youth. And our youth audience is growing exponentially because of all of the choices that are placed before young people at an earlier age that are more life impacting than any generation before us. We didn't have these types of life impacting decisions that young people have today, and it's just overwhelming for them. And so I'm really concerned. Our youth, as we all would agree, is our greatest resource. That's our greatest resource because that's our future. We've got to provide for this increasing demand in that area. So horses going back to the barn.
Anyone else?
I was just going
Go
to
ahead.
ask, so when we do that, and so I appreciate the presentation today, as we continue to look at these different, issues that have come before asking for increases, can we start to, you said there's going to be other pressures, other asks, so we're going to need to look at each of them individually, but I'd also like to come back and bring them all together, kind of what we do with the ARPA funding, and just so where are the pressures, what is everybody asking for? Because we are pretty good at accepting something individually, and then we get to the end, but we don't want to support the funding that was necessary for all the decisions we made up to that, right? Right, and it's kind of getting to what you're talking about, can we get this information up front? But we're gonna have to get to a point where we're actually looking at all of them.
Well, we have a budget process that we
Right.
finally adopted last month, so, but again, I mean, just look at the budget process. So, you know, we had amendments on the floor when we're trying to pass the budget process that I wasn't anticipating or expecting, and we eventually got to the point where we passed it. But that's a document that we utilize, staff utilizes in order to work on the budget. If we're having issues just passing a budget policy, I don't even want to think about how actual passing a budget's going to go. So you know, during that meeting, my brain just started processing real quick, like, okay, so what can we do to try and make this process cleaner so that we're not spending a lot of time, that everyone's entitled to their own opinion and entitled to make their own decisions, right? And I don't want to ever take that away, and I want to make sure they have an opportunity to speak and be able to vote however they want to vote. But that being said, the process by which we go about doing that is what, to me, we need to focus on in order to make sure that process is a clean process and gives everyone the opportunity. But ultimately, we get 10 votes, because that's what we need now, 10 votes to do something, whatever that something is. So that's what I'm trying to come up with. You know, and maybe it's a series of votes. Maybe, you know, you put all the requests on the table, and you take each one of those requests as a separate vote, and at the end of the day, whatever the total comes out to is what the total comes out to based on 10 people supporting things along the way. I mean, I know that seems counterintuitive to passing a whole budget in its entirety, but if that's what we need to do to make the process clean, then so be it. I mean, I'm just, again, that's where my brain is trying to figure this out. You know, I'd rather have, not to pick on mental health, but right now that's what we're talking about, right? So to me, you know, the request comes up on the board floor, they would like 2.5 million. You deal with the amendments, and at least you have an idea. You have the discussion beforehand where a majority of the board, would support whatever that dollar amount is, and then you take a vote on it, and if there's 10 votes, then that's what gets passed. I don't know. Again, discussion. I'm just throwing it out here, but can I ask a quick question? So I know that I had spoke before your finance committee. So is the finance committee the one that's driving the request for 2.5 million?
The total board. The
Okay,
total board.
so what was the finance committee's position?
Originally, the finance committee was going back and forth between putting $1 million to $600,000, and we had providers coming to our board meeting last month, in which they were really advocating for the full amount, and the full board supported that.
Okay, so and I apologize for not knowing your.
And the finance committee is meeting next week.
Okay, so is the finance committee members made up of the full board?
Yes, there's finance committee members are part of the full board, yes. Subcommittee.
Okay, so all of the finance committee is a part of the full board. There isn't members that are not. Okay.
Correct.
So what I'm hearing you say is the finance committee had originally come up with 600 to $1 million, but when it got to the full board felt that the full request of 2.5 was what was
Needed.
theoretically needed. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. I don't. Again, I just wanted to bring this to the table, not only for the ask currently, but as a more general discussion about things that we are going to have to be dealing with and thinking about. And again, I want to thank all of you for really wanting to be on finance.
When is your finance committee next week?
It is next I'm sorry, I just got back from a trip. It is on the third Tuesday of this month, so it's in 2 weeks. Sorry, I thought it
Oh,
was.
I do have that here. Okay.
Yeah,
Isn't that the same as our county board meeting?
yes. It's at 5 o'clock.
So you can
One
go
or
to
the
that
other.
before.
One or the other, yes.
Okay. If there's nothing else, then we're gonna move on. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you guys very much. I know it's a tough decision.
All right, we're on to reports. Chief Financial Officer.
Can I jump in before Carrie hits around?
You can, you don't have to jump because you're ready.
I think some of you had some discussion about some additional furniture we wanted to put into the purchasing department. You know, we shoehorned finance into county administration and purchasing over the last 3 years, and that dam broke when we moved Carrie and her team down to the Regional Office of Education, and we had some cubes wedged into an area that was previously a common area, and Adam approached Scott and I about maybe doing something with that common area now, and kind of creating a waiting area and a staff gathering area. Scott and I are supportive. I like the ideas. It's really attractive. We've already painted some blue paint down there to kind of create this area. Obviously, the question is, how do you pay for it? Adam had a project, metering mail and getting some different equipment in the mailroom that is going to be about half of what he expected in terms of dollars. So we proposed to move forward using some of those dollars. The auditor had some questions there and kind of put a hold on the requisition. I talked some more with Carrie, who just left the room, but and when I talked with Carrie, she had a different idea of maybe we can use the dollars that we've already used to furnish her office and the Regional Office of Education, which was some additional $107,000 we got late in the ARPA process. So it's loose and it's there, and that we wouldn't then necessarily require the auditor's office to put their name on the acquisition, and I think we're fine. So I wanted to update you that it's going to be a nice addition, and I'm looking forward to making the change.
So that means there's no question to us. It's gonna happen, and it doesn't come to us to decide.
Where's this
Well, that
at?
was easy.
What's that?
Where's this at? That's gonna happen? They're talking about the cubicles.
At the
out
top of
here?
the stairs, instead of turning right to county administration, you go left to purchasing that big glass area there. We need a nice new desk for Adam's principal front assistant there. It's a disaster what it looks like now. We want to get that, and some new cabinets and a little seating area for a common area for staff and people waiting for our office or HR or vendors or anything. That's what we'd like to do.
I don't personally care which way you go, whatever you want to do. So, I mean,
Just to clarify though, even though we're using funds outside of the general fund, we still need auditors.
Okay. Well, then we'd hope to have the auditor's approval.
So the only thing I will say is I don't want, just because he had a project that came in under budget, I don't want that. You have to differentiate those fund usages, so I don't want that to appear.
Yeah,
It just needs to be accounting-wise cleared as to what that money is being utilized for.
And when projects come under budget and we use them for some reason, we give that a lot of scrutiny. But Carrie's suggestion is even cleaner, so I appreciate your suggestion.
That's fine.
Because it won't come from that.
Committee have any issue with this? I just want to be.
You just said it's coming from ARPA?
Well, it's not coming directly from ARPA, so we got another distribution. There's the tribal, or local government and tribal consistency distribution. So it was anyone that received ARPA also received this, but we have to report once a year, but outside of using the funds for lobbying, there's no real requirements.
And dollar-wise, you're talking
3 additional. We're talking about $6,000. I think there was about $3,000 that was questioned by the auditor.
Okay. Anyone have issues?
Well, I mean, if it's being questioned by the auditor, the question is, when one asks It's like, you know, and draw to the memory of, you know, ridiculous costs of the federal government where they pay a ton of money for a toilet. And you're like, that's not what a toilet costs, right? So $6,000 is supposed to cover a desk, a couch.
File cabinets, some other chairs.
So I trust the auditor, and I would like to say that if the auditor is saying these costs are too high, look for a cheaper cost. And I would say, all right, yeah, find cost-saving measures.
And that's, you know, I appreciate that, and we did reduce some of the costs, but it's a very subjective position, and I feel like, you know, you ask us to make good decisions all the time about how we best use money, and there is some subjectivity into what is too expensive, and I feel like Adam's worked hard to make this a good ask, and it's going to be a nice space for our building and for our staff.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Was that
That's
your
it.
jump in? Okay. Go ahead.
There's, in terms of, we're not reaching any thresholds in terms of what needs board approval. I guess
Right.
that's the point. So it's just, she wanted this body, she wanted me to make them aware, you guys aware that we're doing this. Just,
Well, I just want
appreciate it.
I'm supportive of that, I really am. I think that we do have our staff that has worked really hard to make sure that we're doing things cost effectively, and a lot of effort was made. And there are some things, in terms of cost of furniture and things like that, it's crazy what things are costing out there right now, so I'm comfortable with
And there's installation and assembly charges that kind of.
So we're buying it from
bring things
IKEA?
up. What's that?
We're buying it from IKEA?
You gotta get a Swedish translator.
Just go by the.
All right, Carrie?
Okay, I'll be quick. The first one is kind of a housekeeping item. So since you may not remember, this resolution you passed in February.
So you're reminding us.
Yes.
Thanks for using WebEx. Visit our website at www.webex.com.
So IMEC, we have been working with them to try to get moving forward with their project. And one of the things that came up when we talked with them a couple of weeks ago was their project was approved on this resolution for $1,395,000. And when we spoke with them, and actually MCC has been reaching out to us, MCC wants to be reimbursed directly by the county instead of being reimbursed. So IMEC would request reimbursement from us, and then they would pay MCC. So we talked with both Bronner and Baker Tilly, and we're not going to change anything about the project. It's really just MCC is going to be a subrecipient of the county versus IMEC. And neither Bronner nor
A
Baker.
direct subrecipient.
Yes. Of the 395,000. So $1 million for IMEC, 395,000 for MCC. And really nothing else about the program, how it's reported to the U.S. Treasury is going to be different.
So you're bringing it to our attention.
Correct. We didn't think that we needed a new resolution because it's not changing the project, it's just how we're paying them out. So I was more just letting you know.
It was, so I was on this call, and it was one of the sticking points, because MCC is already a recipient of ARPA dollars, as we all know, and so
For
we
two
have
different projects.
Yeah, for two different projects. So we felt that this would be a cleaner way and an easier way for them to get the reimbursement instead of having to go through IMEC, which, again, IMEC is just simply passing through the dollars. And because we're already established with MCC, this would help clear that up. Anyone have issues? No? Okay.
Okay. So next, we've been talking about this, I feel like for a while, the monthly reporting or quarterly reporting. So what I'm kind of looking for from you guys, and I can send this out to you so you can give me some feedback, is just some ideas that I had for what you want to see on a monthly basis. And so like I said, it's hard for me because I'm so down to the detail in this process, but then showing you enough information without seeming overwhelming. So what I kind of came up with just to start, this report is just through March, and it's by fund and then object level 1, so the category. So this is revenue, and then my thinking on this was maybe taking off some of these other funds because it kind of gets to be a lot. And then once we establish what kind of reporting we want to look at, maybe like showing this and then a write-up of, you know, things that are off. But the thing about the revenue is to point out just how slow we are at times receiving revenue and how much we rely on our fund balances, specifically in the first 6 months of our fiscal year. So, like I said, I will send this out and you can look at it.
But I think one of the things that we had talked about, and this is when Kevin was here, but we had talked about trying to make this into like a dashboard, you know, green, yellow, red type philosophy. In the sense that I don't know that the committee necessarily needs to know when revenues are anticipated about coming in versus, so like if I were to look at property tax is a great example, right? So you look at the first couple months of our fiscal year, it's going to show 0 receipt because we don't actually receive the first installment until May, June, whenever taxes go out, right? So if you were to just look at that as a straight line situation, that would be red because you'd be like, well, shit, we haven't received anything. Excuse me. You know, if it's a straight line, but really it's a green because we are not anticipating receiving it, right? And I don't think as a committee we need to know all that information, right? What we should really be focused on is the revenue that we're receiving on target with what is expected to be received at that point in time, whatever that month is, right? And if you start showing yellow, then we should know about it. And if you start showing red because we're not receiving as what we anticipated receiving, that's to me a discussion item, right? Like, why is this happening? You know, especially on the revenue side, because that's what, you know, beefs up our budget, right? So, and on the expenditure side, it's no different. There's expenditures that happen on a set timeline, which may not be linear, and therefore, I don't need to have attention drawn to it. So, you know, to me, it draws the attention to the items that need to be drawn to. If the whole thing is green, then yes, you can have a discussion. Everything's on target, everything's going as planned.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's
Like
a,
a
yeah, I
raise
agree,
report,
that's
like a
right, we only really want to know
report.
when we should be worried.
So,
Yeah.
revenue obviously is a lot. So what I did with the revenues, and I can add so I kind of took, kind of what I'm hearing you say is you don't need to see all the detail of the revenue. So what I did was just for the general fund, is I went in and I looked at just the major revenues based on budget. So you want me to come into here and apply the red, green, yellow.
Yeah. Well, I think if you can go down to level 1, if it's a red item and you need to pinpoint why it's a red item, then by all means go down to object level 1. But if it's not, then I don't need 20 lines that roll up into a specific situation. That's my personal feeling. I mean, again, the whole objective of giving this information to the board, to this committee, is information so that we are aware. What we don't want to have happen, which we've had happen in the past, is revenues fall short of anticipated budget or expenditures are over what was anticipated. Now, granted, you can't spend more on a line item than what is budgeted because the board has to take approval on that. So we're controlling that side of the equation by our actions more. But the reality is that especially on the revenue side, we don't. It gets sent to us. You know, in the past, when we've had issues with the state of Illinois and the reimbursements we've gotten, had we seen that dashboard information, it probably would have drawn our attention to it a lot quicker than 4 months after the fact, and then them coming back and saying, oh, by the way, we made mistakes and now we're debiting you those dollars, you know?
Okay. So instead of seeing everything with just highlights, you only want to see what's not true?
Variances.
Okay.
Right, a variance, right.
That's what I want, variances.
I was just saying, if it,
Yeah.
variance and if you have to modify it in some way, but whatever is off from what it should be.
I do think that sometimes it's beneficial to get a percentage of revenue versus, this time last year. That sometimes is useful, but variance is to me the most significant. And if there's a good reason for that, I wouldn't waste time on a narrative or anything like that. But, I mean, if it's logical, that's great. But if there's something that's out of logical, then that's when I want a little bit of narrative. But I don't need a narrative for everything.
So
Anyway,
can I ask one? Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead,
So I
Karen.
just want to ask a question, because I think I'm thinking about what we did with the district. So do we do a variance report here where you go down and do?
We
where-
haven't in the past.
Okay, so then that is what I'm thinking about. I thought maybe we were doing it here. So that was what it was, but where every line there was a variance, but you had expected because
Right.
tax revenues weren't in there. So you had this really long list. So maybe, to me, it would be a modified list of only highlighting those things where we need to be concerned or something's going on, to your point. I mean, you could put in an entire report and then do a sub-report that would just condense it into problem areas.
Okay.
If somebody wanted to see, because, what's informative about a complete variance report is how our revenues flow and how they don't necessarily match up to our expenses. So for people who aren't as familiar with how income and revenue and expenditures go throughout the year, this gives them a picture. But it is a lot of detail to get every single time, and if we want to be able to focus on the things that we need to worry about, maybe spoken, it's just the one.
Sometimes it's useful, it's not always useful, but sometimes it's useful if, like, this time last year, we, had this percentage of our income or revenue for X fund coming in. This year, however, it's significantly lower. Is there a specific reason for that?
Right.
But I don't want to create a lot of additional work for the staff in terms of narratives or anything
But you can just run those.
I also am interested, so we were talking about green, yellow, and red, and really want to really see yellow and red. I also am interested in items that I would call blue areas, which are, we're we have more revenue than we thought we were gonna get from there, or we're underspending, and so that we're the good news, the news of where we're having
So
cost
variance
savings and
is
cost
different.
increases, yeah.
Okay.
You can have the light shaded green and then the dark shaded green.
No, I call it
A little bit of money and
a
a
different
lot
color.
of money.
Well, and I was trying to see kind of what you guys wanted to look at, and then a lot of the very detailed stuff we can have available in Questica. So you can go in and look at all the detail, drill in, but then maybe I will summarize that to bring forward to you guys with just the good or bad variances. Yes?
Yeah, I appreciate this. I know we can go into Questica and look, but
It's a
on me
lot.
that I don't.
It's a lot.
But I do like a variance report. I like what Dr. Sager said about having a different, like, compare it to the past, or a trend or the past year, just so we can see where we are.
Okay.
And then a small write-up, and I know this, I don't want too much, but I think that's our job as finance, is to see where we are and to be able to gauge where we're gonna be at the end of the year. So, I mean, if you think about it's kind of going back to the budget discussion. We have individual resolutions that come to us. We just approved another auditor position. We approve this, we approve that, and then by the end of the year, we may be overspent, and we are not realizing it because we're just looking at individual things, not the whole thing as a whole. So I think it's something that we should be.
So I think to build on that, and revenues are obviously different than expenses, because the way that it flows in. But the one thing with expenditures that I wanted to point out is that specifically. So if you look at original budget, that's what was approved last November by the county board. So revised budget is anything throughout the year that increases that budget. So the only way you can increase budget is through a resolution. So it's back to kind of that point of you're approving things one by one, and then it's fine, but then if you look, and a lot of this is the PO roll forward, so just so you don't feel shocked at the very end. But if you look, so the budget that was initially approved was 263 million, and now we're up to 320. So again, it's more, I think if we keep talking about these things each month, we talk about fund balance, utilizing fund balance for the first half of the year for revenues. Looking at how resolutions are increasing our original approved budget, and then looking at variances.
Of that 60 million increase, how much of that is grant money, and so it's not really our money? Right, because grants are like, yeah, I've got some grants.
Yes, yeah, and that's all, and like I said, about 50 million of it is that PO roll forward.
Yeah.
So it's a little, but it's still 10 million.
What does PO stand for, actually?
Purchase order. So at the end of the year, if there is a project that's ongoing, we don't keep continuing to budget new dollars for that. We just say, okay, this project is still happening, so we need to move that PO forward. Which a lot of it's Department of Transportation.
So the 50 million of this was last year's money that just rolled to this year's money?
Yes.
Yep.
So we don't have to be mad at
So
ourselves,
those-
we've gone 60 million over, but it's
Those
just
plow trucks
time.
that we keep on talking about, those
Yeah.
plow trucks have rolled over for over a year, so.
Yes.
Multiple years.
But I think they're all pieces of the overall discussion.
Yep. Do you have enough guidance and direction?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
What else do you have?
We have some candidates for our new position. We're receiving them tomorrow, and then we're meeting with HR next week, so.
It's Carrie's old position.
Yes, which I'm looking forward to getting that one filled, I think. And then back to your point too about creating more work. I think this has been on our plan for a while, but it's just, it seems to be, you always have to prioritize every day. But doing these monthly, diving into this information, and then that actually helps with our year-end audit process too. So it's something that is gonna be additional work, but we've been needing to add this in for a while.
You have anything else?
I would just add, we heard some tough stuff about the need for new mental health. I am excited to get in and do some revenue projections in the next few months, because I think we are gonna have some good signs there in terms of income, tax revenue, because everybody's making more money these days. So that should be good. Interest is crazy, what the treasurer is doing with short-term investments. It's like nothing I've seen.
We might actually get over $1 million in interest again.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Imagine that.
We keep open, there's gonna be more marijuana stores by the end of the year, we're getting 3% of all that.
That's money not going up in smoke. So. All right. Do you have anything else, Carrie?
I do.
Okay. There was no contingency reports. EDC, I don't have a report on EDC. Is there? I think we kind of talked a little bit about that. But Scott.
National McHenry County will be meeting this afternoon, 3:30 p.m. at the Holiday Inn in Crystal Lake.
Why the Holiday Inn?
We'd like to move the meetings around a different place. The Holiday Inn is actually one of the partners for National McHenry County.
Got it.
Is that in the Atlanta Conference Center, is that where it is?
They said first floor, I'm not sure exactly which one.
You need room for 400?
Probably not.
It's at the ballroom.
But I don't know. They're exciting meetings, so.
All right. Then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn at 10:46 a.m. No one wants to make it? Kelly, Larry, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion